channel where we question everything. Today's topic is military affairs and the recent UAV attack on the Russian Navy fleet in Sevastopol on the Saturday. Well, just when I thought that the Ukrainian-Russian conflict in Ukraine has quieted down a little bit and everybody is preparing for whatever they are planning, suddenly we hear about the attack of the Ukrainian forces on the Russian fleet in Sevastopol on the Saturday. Why? I'm not totally sure, but, well, that is what they did. One cannot always understand why the Ukrainians are acting as they are acting and doing the things that they are doing. Because the attack, in my opinion, is a valid military attack, contrary to what the Russians would like to say. It's a terrorist attack, but Russia and Ukraine are in a state of war, and any Russian target is a valid military target. But what military value does this one have? I cannot understand. In fact, the consequences of this attack should have been obvious to the Ukrainians, especially after they attacked the Crimean Bridge. But let's look at the details on what's available. The attack occurred about 4 o'clock in the morning, and it consisted out of 9 UAVs and 7 naval drones. And because of the Crimean Bridge, and because Sevastopol is a very important asset to the Russians, they have upgraded their security and air defenses, and naturally, all of these drones were shot down in the Sevastopol Bay, and with minor damage to any infrastructure. In fact, only a trawler vessel, the Ivan Golubets vessel, was slightly damaged, and then a boom barrier, the net boom barrier in the bay, was slightly damaged. There were no civilian or any other casualties that was caused by the attack. Now, according to the Russian Defense Ministry, who made this attack known on its Telegram channel, the preparation for this attack and the training of the military personnel of the Ukrainian 73rd Special Center for Maritime Operation carried out this attack, and they did it under the supervision of the British experts based in the city of Oshakov in Ukraine's Mykolaiv region. This is quite specific. So I believe that the Russians had some intelligence about that, because they identified the group that did it, and they identified also that they were supported by British military personnel, and they also specified from where this attack has come from. And this is quite significant. Well, in lieu of this attack, again, no military value really, Russia, or the Ministry of Defense, said that Russia has suspended the participation in the implementation of the agreements of the export of agricultural products from the Ukrainian ports. That's sort of like quoted from. Well, this agreement was concluded by Turkey between Ukraine and Russia in July this year, after it was a huge propaganda effort that this will cause, there were lots of grain stored in Ukraine, and that it had to be exported to poorer countries that might undergo famine and starvation. Well, for me, from the start off, I don't understand why the Russians even made this deal because there are two sides to the deal. The first one was that the Ukrainians would be allowed to export their grain as soon as they removed the naval mines, the old ones, and clears the passage for civilians vessels. And then Russia will provide a corridor, a safe corridor for these vessels to leave the Black Sea and then enter international waters and then deliver their grain. In return, Russia will get support from the West to export their own grain and fertilizer to the rest of the world. Unfortunately, and I don't understand why, is that it wasn't part of the initial agreement in writing. The UN was supposed to negotiate with the Western world afterwards to get the second part of the contract going, and then convince the Western nations to allow Russia to export its own grain. In the initial statement of supporting poorer countries and preventing worldwide famine, and then also allow the export of fertilizers. Now, the West always has, typically as they do, telling half the story, had no direct sanctions on the Russian vessels, but they had indirect sanctions in the form of insurance and financing on any Russian vessel that would export this grain. So the Russians never could really do it unless they took the risk and got financing and insurance from other countries. And I believe that's probably what happened. Then, unfortunately, there's not much data available of how much Russia has exported of their grain at this stage. But we will probably hear that in the future. What we do know is that Putin made a statement a couple of weeks back that up till the September the 23rd, about 203 vessels have left the Ukrainian ports with grain, and only 4 went to the poorest countries. And also, according to the Russian agricultural minister, they know precisely where this grain or these shipments have gone, and that it didn't solve the real problem or the stated problems or the propaganda of the Western world by supporting famine or preventing famine in the poorer countries. So they saw, probably via various means, that most of the vessels went to either Italy, Spain, or the Netherlands. And then up to 60 to 100% of the load was unloaded, which means or indicates that it was earmarked for the European market, which is a total contradiction to what the initial accusations were and the reason for this grain export, or the reason for opening the Odessa ports. So again, at that one stage, they were exporting these vessels, and then Russia indicated that, well, they warned that if they vessels and exports of grain and fertilizers are not going to be honored, then they will withdraw from the agreement. But they did say they will. The initial period was until end of October, which means they will support the agreement until the expiry date, but they will not renew it. And, well, today is Sunday, the 30th. Tomorrow is the 31st of October. So effectively, the Russians pulled out about 3 days before the end of the contract, that it should have been in any case. Well, also the Russian agricultural minister signaled on Saturday that the Russians had a very good harvest and a record, basically, grain harvest, and that they are prepared, with the help of Turkey, to export about 500,000 tons of grain to the poorer, in the next 4 months, to the poorer countries, and thereby contribute to the alleviation of hunger in the world. So they are doing what they said they will do. And nobody can really accuse the Russians that they are not doing their part in alleviating hunger in the world. But the same cannot be said about the Western world, who are hypocritical in any case and have proven it multiple times. So basically, if you hear anything else that the Russians again are creating famine in the world, then that's a pure lie. Now, also what the Russians have said is that, every vessel that leaves Odessa or the Black Sea has to report or dock in a Turkish harbor where they are search for any contraband or weapons or explosives. And Putin did make it did say that they are not sure at this, that they don't have all the evidence, but it seems to him that the explosives that was used in the Crimean bridge attack, was transported via a grain vessel. And in multiple videos you can find out how the whole sabotage action actually occurred. And then Putin said if that happens, then they will also cancel the grain deal. Currently, they say there's an artificial crowding of vessels in the port of Istanbul. And the reason why that is to apparently push them the Russians into a less rigorous checks of the cargoes. So it seems to me there's something funny going on again. Naturally, what was the response from the West? Well, Biden again went on the rant and said it's purely outrageous and it's going to increase starvation and there's no merit in what they are doing. The UN negotiated that deal and that should be the end of it, according to Biden. Zelensky again went haywire and spewed his typical accusations and propaganda. And we all know what the rest of the European leaders going to say. But the bottom line again is Ukraine initialized the attack on the Sevastopol harbor with the intention of damaging the Russian Navy fleet, the same Navy fleet that is actually protecting the grain vessels to leave Odessa and the Black Sea and arrive safely in Istanbul. So again, why they would do it, I don't know. I don't see the military benefit of that, and the response would have been obvious, especially after the huge missile attack on the infrastructure of Ukraine after the Crimean bridge. But what is quite significantly is that the Russians seems to me have proper intelligence on who done it and where from. And I will discuss it in a different video. I hope this was of benefit for you. Please subscribe to the channel, share the links to the videos, and until next time, cheers.